Hey everyone, I'm so excited to be here with you all today. My name is Anneke, my pronouns are she, her, and I'm going to wait just a few moments while people just hop in here. So we're just going to give it a second. Hi folks, thanks so much for joining. If you're joining now, my name is Anneke and I'm so happy to be with y'all today. So I see folks joining the room. Hi everyone, so happy to see so many folks, amazing. So again, my name is Anneke, my pronouns are she, her, and I am an engagement coordinator for the One Love Foundation. I am joining you all here today to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is consent. This month, in honor of Sexual Assault Awareness Month, we are talking all about consent and the culture that we want to build with consent. So I'm going to wait for a few more folks to join before we really get going. So excited to see some familiar faces on here and so many new ones. This is wonderful. So while folks are just joining, a little bit of a background on why should we care about consent? I guess I'll say why I care about consent to start with. I really feel that consent is something that is a daily practice. It's a practice that you develop within yourself and with other people in the relationships that you're in. It's not something that's actually just for those moments where intimacy is happening. It's for moments all the time throughout our daily lives. For me, it was so empowering to learn all about consent and to start to learn about how it could really reframe ways that I think about my own relationships. So I think we're going to get going officially here. So once again, my name is Anneke. My pronouns are she, her, and I am so happy to be with you all today here at One Love. A quick reminder that if any of you on here at any point would like further support, we recommend that you get in touch with the awesome resource Rain, and we just highly recommend reaching out to those folks anytime, now or later. Also, folks can feel free to ask me questions at any point. Although there will be like an official question asking period later, at any point you can feel free to just click on the little question mark icon and just hop right in with any questions you have. So getting down to business, I want to introduce you to a tool that I love so much because it really breaks down what consent is. And today I'm really here to break down just the basics. In honor of Sexual Assault Awareness Month, we're really getting into what is consent, how do we do it, how do we make it a practice. So I love a tool. It is called the Fries tool, and it was actually a tool that was created originally by Planned Parenthood. And fries, as we know, is a great food, certainly one of my favorite foods. But this concept is an acronym, and it stands for all of the dimensions of what goes into full consent. So the words that make up fries are freely given, reversible, informed, enthusiastic, and specific. And all of those components together make up what we really think about as consent. So I'm going to give a few examples about what those words and terms really mean. At One Love, we love talking all about definitions and really grounding ourselves in the same language. So this is a tool that we use in workshops. And as I mentioned before, I am an engagement coordinator. So this is a tool that I love using in my own workshops, and I train other people to use in theirs as well. So when we talk about consent being something that is freely given, what we're really thinking about is not feeling any kind of pressure or coercion. So if I feel like I can freely give my response, which might be a yes, it might be a no, it might be a I'm not sure yet, I want to talk about this more, then if I feel free to say whatever I want, that is a great sign that the relationship that I am having this interaction in is probably going in a healthy direction because I can freely say whatever I want. However, if I'm in a situation where I feel pressured or coerced to say something specific that is not truly what I feel that I want or need, that would not be an example of freely given. Now that R for reversible. Reversible, this is a really important one. And it basically means that just because you agree to something before, just because I gave a yes to something before, does not mean I cannot change my mind later. In fact, I can change my mind at any time. And if the person that I am having an interaction with respects that and only, you know, treats me with kindness and respect as I'm making that decision, that is another good sign that healthy relationship interaction is happening. Another dimension of consent is informed, and informed is so important because what it basically means is we all have to be on the same page with the same kind of information about what we're doing. And thank you so much to the folks who are joining in right now. Nice to see you here. So when we're talking about informed consent, what it really means is we understand in the same way what we're doing. There isn't confusion. And in a given scenario where I might have some confusion about, wait, what are we doing again? I hopefully feel like I can freely ask a question to clarify that. And then ultimately I'm going to then feel like I have the right kind of information to make a decision that's right for me. Now we come to the E, enthusiastic. I feel like this is the one that maybe the most folks have heard about. And enthusiastic means, well, kind of what you think it means. It means that you actually want to do something. There is enthusiasm present, that I'm not putting on an act, that it's authentic. It's really something that I feel, but that I enthusiastically say that I want something. And I think that enthusiastic and freely given have a really important relationship, because if I feel like I can freely say whatever I want, but in this moment I want to say yes, then my enthusiasm is going to come through there. Now, the last dimension of consent is specific, and specificity is so key and really ties to informed consent as well. Because maybe I thought that I wanted to do something. Maybe I wanted to like go to a party with my friends. But then I realized later, actually, I don't have all the specific information I need to make this decision. Maybe I need a little more information that is specific to understand the conditions under which I am making this decision. In a bunch of the workshops that I do and that I train others to do, there's a fun role play that we like to do. And it really involves thinking about going to a party. So a totally non-intimate scenario, just a regular old thing that you might do with your friends. And we walk through the dimensions of consent with that role play. And I like to think about what are the conditions that would make me potentially either want to or not want to do something. And specificity, again, that's why it's so important. So for those of y'all who joined later, I wanted to say again that to me, consent is something that is a practice. It's something that isn't just a momentary decision. It's really a way that you relate to both yourself and to other people that you have relationships to. So it's an ongoing practice. Now, I want to dig into a little bit of the R of reversible and also talk about another R word that's really important here too. Some people might feel confused when they hear about the R, the reversible element of consent. Just because somebody said yes before, well, why wouldn't I just assume that they keep saying yes? But this is why the word ongoing is so important, because consent is something that is not just a one momentary thing. It's something that continues throughout a specific interaction, dynamic, whatever you're doing with another person. So if you're ever wondering, well, can I really change my mind? Is that something that I can do? The answer is absolutely yes. And if another person doesn't respect that that reversible decision, that is probably not something that you want to look over. It's something you want to note and say, okay, that person is making me feel like I can't do and say what I want and need. And that's very notable, right? A reminder that folks can put any questions that they want in the little chat here. So you can actually click on the little question mark and ask me anything. So I welcome all of your thoughts and your questions. Another R word that I want to talk about is rejection, which is so deeply tied into consent. Rejection is a super normal part of life. We're all rejected for so many reasons throughout our lives. And yet we're really taught to avoid rejection, which is kind of unfortunate, because if we're taught to avoid something, how are we taught how to deal with it? So from the time that we're little, maybe we're like rejected from a team, we don't get a part in play that we wanted, maybe we were told by a parent, no, you can't have that toy. So it starts when we're little, and as we get older, other kinds of rejection come into play. No, you didn't get that internship. No, you didn't get into the college you wanted. No, I don't want to go out with you. And it's so important to figure out how we want to deal with feelings of rejection in all facets of our life, so that when we get into moments where maybe the stakes are a little bit higher, maybe we're more vulnerable, especially, you know, when it comes to intimacy, we're probably especially vulnerable in those moments. How we deal with those moments really, really matters. Right in line with all of AskOneLove's 10 signs of a healthy relationship, we like to talk about how rejection plays into that, because how we deal with rejection in our relationships matters, both within intimate scenarios and outside of them. And the more that we practice dealing with rejection in a healthy way, again, the better off we're going to be in those higher stakes, more vulnerable moments. Yeah. I am loving these reacts because this is definitely something I super agree with too. I also highly recommend, there is an Instagram live from, I believe, March 2nd with the wonderful Michael Harley, another AskOneLove staff member. And he does a deep dive into rejection, and I super recommend that you all check that out on the feed. Something else that I want to talk about a little bit in regards to consent is the role of power dynamics, which is something that is another topic so important to consider when we're thinking about relationships. I like to ask the question, is there a reason that the person that you are having an interaction with, whether it's intimate or not, might not feel comfortable saying yes or giving whatever response they're thinking about? So if you realize that you're in a situation, maybe you're like a little bit older than a friend of yours or a little bit older than a person you're dating, and that's just one example of a power dynamic, but let's talk about that one. If you realize maybe you're a little bit older and maybe that's a little bit intimidating to someone else, think about how you in that relationship can make sure to reinforce that the other person, their wants and needs matter just as much as yours. And if at any point you feel like you're not sure if the person you have this relationship with is comfortable expressing what they want and need, then you're going to want to make sure to maybe pull back a little bit and make sure that nothing happens until that person actually authentically wants whatever you're planning to do or not do. So really just important to ask ourselves those questions so that we really are honest with ourselves about why the people that we're in relationships with might not be comfortable with things that are coming up. Now, I see some more folks are joining. Thank you so much for hopping on. In honor of this very important month of Sexual Assault Awareness Month, I want to talk about supporting survivors, because when we're talking about consent, we're also talking about people who have had experiences without consent, and that's just a reality of the world that we live in now, right? But we're trying to change that at AskOneLove. So reminders that you want to affirm people who are survivors. You want to listen deeply. Always make sure to check your own language and make sure that you're not placing blame on a survivor. Not placing blame is going to be so important. Making sure that you affirm that you believe them and their experiences, also so important. And then lastly, you want to make sure to be aware of resources that might be able to help the survivor in your life. And maybe they don't want to use those resources today, and you absolutely should not try and make them, because that's another element of respecting and affirming and supporting survivors. You want to let people make their own decisions and empower them to do what they think is best for them. But being equipped with resources is great, because you might be able to say, hey, I heard about this awesome organization, RAIN, and they have this 24-hour hotline, and if you ever want to call them up or like chat them, I feel like that might be good. If it were me, I might even talk about, I had a friend who had a really good experience talking with a counselor at RAIN, and I know that was really empowering for them. And because an organization like RAIN also respects people of all identities, all sexual orientation identities, gender identities, etc., I can confidently recommend that to my friends and my peers and young people that I work with too, knowing that they're going to respect everyone that I might be coming in contact with. So again, being equipped with resources, knowing when to recommend them, but also knowing that you never want to force a resource on someone who doesn't want to use it, both are equally important. So I'd love to open the floor up for some questions. That question button below is there for the using. So do folks maybe have some questions they would like to ask? Anything about consent that maybe you've been wondering? maybe any clarifications about things I've talked about a little bit already, about the fries model or about rejection, really anything that you're wondering about. And as I'm giving folks maybe a minute to type some of those questions up, I'm going to just say again, for those of you who joined more recently, a question I get a lot is, why is it important to talk about consent when it comes to non-intimate scenarios? Why do consent and boundary setting relate so much? Boundary setting is something that we talk about so much at OneLove. And what I said before, and I'm saying again because it's just so important, is that consent is a practice. It's not just a one moment or one time decision or way that you react to something. It's an ongoing practice within ourselves and with our relationships. So if we get better at practicing consent in non-intimate scenarios, it's not only going to make us better communicators, better listeners in all types of scenarios that we're in, but in moments where you're extra vulnerable, particularly, with intimacy, we're going to be better equipped to really listen deeply and respond with respect and kindness when we're in a more vulnerable moment. So that is one of the reasons that I love talking about consent in all sorts of scenarios. Opening up the floor for questions to see if anyone has anything that they want to check in about. And for those folks who just joined, this is just a little bit of a primer on some of the basics of consent, some of the tools that we like to talk about at OneLove. Well, a reminder that you can always submit questions to us at OneLove, not just during the live, but of course anytime as well. And I'm seeing something come in right now. So I'm seeing a question about implied consent. I would love if you wouldn't mind or just letting me know what your question is about implied consent, because I'd love to know what it is that you're wondering about. Because that can sort of come up in a lot of different scenarios. I guess until I get that clarification, I will say that if you ever have any questions about whether or not a person is comfortable doing something or not doing something, check in again. So if we're using a scenario, let's say that I asked my friend if they want to come to a party with me, and they give me a kind of funny answer where they're a little bit like, yeah, sure. And I look at them and I hear their voice and I'm like, well, wait, what do they actually mean? I can't tell what they want. What is the best way to follow up to that? Not assume, but clarify again. And I'm going to make sure to not put pressure on them when I ask again. I might say something like, hey, you seem a little bit unsure. Are you sure that you want to come? I'm totally fine either way. So affirming that whatever decision they want to make is totally fine with me, but clarifying that I'm not sure what they mean. And if I'm still not sure, then I'm ultimately going to not want to do that thing because I don't want to cross a boundary with somebody that I care about, So when in doubt, you want to clarify and follow up. And if you still have doubt, then you want to back off and do something else. If that did not answer your question though, please do clarify, because I'm so happy to answer what you'd like to talk about. Would anyone else on here like to ask me anything else? You can use that question button. Just click on that little question button and type in whatever you're thinking about. And while I'm giving, let's see. Ooh, a great comment here. So I'm going to read it out loud. Continually asking someone to do something until they say yes. Confirm that's not consent. Not consent. True. So something that I like to talk about specifically around exactly what you just said is that it is actually what we call a red flag at OneLove if somebody tries to work their way around your no. So in one of the films that we base our workshops on, called Amor del Bueno, there's a great example of this. And I always come back to it because it's an example where one person in the relationship that the film is based on, they make clear that they have some boundaries, and the other person not only doesn't listen to them, but they keep kind of pushing a little bit, and sometimes they do it in a cute way. Please, come on, it's my only free night. But when you aren't listening to someone's boundaries and you're trying to work your way around what they said they didn't want to do, that's not okay, and it's definitely not an example of practicing consent. I'm so glad that you brought that question up. It's so important. And that's actually a really good point too, because sometimes we hear the phrase, yes means yes. And that can be true, but it's not necessarily true. And that example that you just gave is one reason why, because maybe a person's yes was not freely given. When we go back to that fries model that we talked about before, if a person doesn't feel like they can freely give whatever answer they want, if they don't feel like they can freely talk out maybe their thought process for fear of the other person judging them or feeling like they might not be listened to, then that is not a sign that things are going well. Yeah, I totally agree. For folks in the chat. Does anyone else have any other questions? Anything that's on your mind? And again, you can just press that little question mark, or if it's easier for you, use the comments. We're really here to just talk about whatever is on your mind today. And as I'm maybe opening the floor up for another question or two, another little note on affirming and supporting survivors. Something that I really appreciate about working for One Love is that we talk a lot about how to help a friend that we're worried about. And one of the things that we talk so much about is asking open-ended questions when you want to make sure that somebody feels like anything they say is okay with you. You're not going to judge them for anything you say. And the same goes with talking to someone who maybe you're worried had an experience that wasn't positive, or you know they're a survivor. Making sure that you ask, like, how are you doing? Just as simple as that, and not assuming how they're doing. That can just be really helpful. Something that I think about a lot when it comes to supporting survivors is the fact that, like consent, supporting survivors is an ongoing process. If someone decides to confide in you as a survivor in any way, it's safe to say that you might expect more conversations in the future. And for that reason, I like to remind people in my life sometimes, hey, just like a reminder that you can talk to me about anything whenever. I'm just here for whatever you want to talk about. And you don't have to tell them what you think that they want to talk about, but just reminding them, I'm here for you going forward. And let's say that a survivor decides to open up to me on maybe today, and we talked for a while about it. Towards the end of our conversation, I would make sure to remind them, hey, I so appreciate that you're trusting me with this, and I want you to know that I'm going to be here to keep talking with you if ever and whenever you want to again. So in the moment, even reminding them is a great thing to do. So I believe that we're coming towards the end of our time together. But if anyone has a last question that they want to ask to close this out, I am so here for that. So if somebody wants to ask maybe one more thing, we could maybe fit in one more question. And as I'm waiting to see if something comes through as a question, just once again, my name is Anneke. I work for the One Love Foundation. My pronouns are she, her. And it's been such a pleasure getting to speak with all of you and learn about your thoughts and answer your questions today. If you have any things that you want to talk about after listening to this live, whether you're on the live or you're watching after the fact, I highly recommend that you reach out to a very trusted resource in RAIN. RAIN has a 24-hour hotline, and they're really amazing. You can chat them online, you can call them, and that's RAIN, RAINN. They have a telephone hotline, chat hotline. You can talk to them in English or Spanish, and they're there to support you in whatever way that you need. So recommend that you reach out to that as a resource if ever you just feel like checking in about something that's on your mind. And again, I said this before, but to repeat, anyone of any identity, all identities are welcome within that organization and their support system. Yeah, and thank you to folks who are sharing with me in the questions. And for folks, if any of you tuning in identify as a survivor, know that we at One Love support you so deeply. We believe you, and we welcome you in this community. And if you find it empowering to learn more about consent and rejection and all of the things that we talked about today, please get involved. Head to our website and check out other resources on our education center where you can learn about how to educate other folks in your community too. So, to the wonderful community, thank you again so much for tuning in. I'm going to log off, but I can't wait to talk to you all again soon, and wishing you a really good day and a healthy day. Talk to y'all later.